I was telling Anthony, my producer, you feel like a friend of the show because we have so many mutual friends, guys like Clinton Yates, whatever. And I'm excited to have you on for the first time, talk a little ball. As you guys have had all the different people, it's fun seeing all the different people coming up on your set right over our camera here all week. Like, what has been the sentiment to you about the actual game? Like, you do wind up talking about so much other stuff, but have you felt like the shift in the actual thoughts on the game change over the course of the week?
No, I think everyone's held pretty steady on what they thought the formula for both teams in this game was going to be, the themes about the running game, both rush defenses and some of the struggles that they've had there throughout most of the season. The funny part has been, when we ask the players who they think is going to win in this game, I appreciate that so many of them just go to the place of pettiness, where it's either they beat us or I'm sick of them being here, or I got buddies on this team. It always becomes deeply personal, even if you get football analysis from them too. So I respect that.
Yeah, no. What's the pettiest someone was all week on your show?
Ooh. See, I don't know if we had anyone go too far down that road, because they also don't want to poke the bear. Because most of the petty is, well, we played in the conference in them, or we play in the division with them. In Mahomes and the Chiefs case, we did hear from some players like, hey, we want to see someone new. So it's not just fans who have that thought process. Players, obviously, they want their teams to be the one to win first and foremost, but there are guys that look and go, yeah, that team's doing all the winning right now. We need someone to knock them off.
Yeah, no, it is interesting how that narrative has turned, and it feels like sometimes you look back after a couple of years, like this happened with the Patriots, where they went from like this plucky underdog to all of a sudden it's like everybody hated them. But like Spygate was the reason that everybody changed. There was like a villain origin story. For the Chiefs, it just seems like everybody's sick of them. Like there's nothing that happened. They're doing the same exact things as we have when we've loved them. And now it does very much feel, unless you're part of the very small but very loud and annoying group of people that it's Taylor Swift influenced, that like that is the narrative is changing on them.
Yeah, I think a lot of their arc reminds me of the Golden State Warriors, like the 73-win Warriors, where there's no scandal tied to this. There's not something nefarious that's at the heart of it. A lot of it just is, hey, you're this much better than our team, and we don't like that. We're the thing that stops our head. I mean, think about for years, LeBron James in the Eastern Conference for a team like the Toronto Raptors, who are perennial one seeds, who couldn't get over that hump. Kansas City's become the stopper for a lot of teams, and they do enjoy it. Pat Mahomes is also a guy not afraid to hunt for calls, not afraid to complain when he feels like he's getting tagged up a little bit too much. And that's the kind of stuff that I think will grate on some people as they go along when their teams are the ones coming up short against them.
Mike Golic Jr. with us. His show on the DraftKings Network. You can check that out. They had so many great interviews this week. I didn't hear a single one of them, but I could see who was going. That's the nature of our shows being on generally the same time.
I mean, that's kind of like most of sports media is us all getting watched in bars in silence. Like no one actually knows our takes. No one actually cares what we're saying.
They have great guests. I have no idea what they say. But
they look like they're having fun. That's why I go. I'm not Italian, but I major in hand motions on my father's son, because you got to project that when you're usually on in silence in the back of an airport bar.
Yeah, no, that is a very good point. It's the headline grabbers are Mahomes. The headline grabber is kind of Kyle's offense, if you will. I tend to think that the key to the game lies within the Chiefs' running game versus the Niners' ability to stop that. Is there a matchup that you're focused on, or whether it's that one or another one?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of them. That one's certainly at the heart of it. I mean, it's more how the Niners choose to address this. Do they believe, hey, like we heard Steve Wilkes complain about publicly, this was an effort thing where we felt like we had to coach that in a way that they shouldn't at this point in time, and they think, hey, we can still run these light box looks. They don't change up their fronts a lot. It's a lot of base 4-2 stuff. They lead, I think they're close to lead the NFL in light box looks. Can we get down like that, or are we going to have to account more resources on it? We're going to have to spin guys down into the box to try and make this receiving group beat you for Kansas City. So I certainly think that's the one that goes a long way, but I think it's really the same for the Chiefs on the other side. Like, that's a team that, especially on the perimeter of that rush defense, can be had. Kyle Shanahan's crews run outside zone as well as anybody in football. Christian McCaffrey's the best running back in the game. And so I think the Chiefs, a lot more moving parts, a defense that gets overall credit for being a lot better this season, but still has a deficiency in that same era that could be a problem if it's not handled right.
So I'm going to ask you a question about this game, and then I'm going to parlay it into the Commanders, and they've obviously just hired Kliff Kingsbury as the OC there, but you were an offensive lineman. And so when you are a part of a well-schemed run game, like Kyle, who is arguably the best at it. And like you have a really good angle versus like, oh God, this reach is going to blow. I do not want to have to deal with this. Let's see what happens. Like how, as best as you can describe, how much easier is your job when it's well schemed versus when you know the defense got you on, whether it's a play or an entire game plan?
Yeah, I think it's twofold. One, when you're well schemed or when you've got a competent coordinator like Kyle, you're usually ahead of the chains, which helps. So you've got options on each down, and you get to dictate the terms. Being in obvious situations is really what you want to avoid, especially obvious passing downs as an offensive lineman, where these guys get to tee off and all these high-priced Ferrari pass rushers get to turn it loose. But I think the other side is formationally the way that Kyle and Andy in this game, the way they use tight ends, big personnel, a lot of that could shield you on the edge. Now you got a tight end attached, you got a fullback in the backfield. DNs have to be a little more accountable to that. It changes the way that they can align and the way that they can rush in certain situations and take some of the heat off that fastball as well there. And with Shanahan's system, they run so much of that outside zone, like you call it run and rip, where you're turning and burning. You're trying to get the defense to fast flow over the top. And it creates so many great opportunities when you're running play pass stuff, because now if the defense wants to run a blitz, they're running into a look that all of a sudden muddies the picture for them a little bit. It creates room for error in your blocking as an offensive lineman just by the structure of the play.
So boom, turn, local question. You look at like an air raid system like Kliff runs, right? And some of, like one, they run, or at least in Arizona, ran a ton of 10 personnel. Like they're in 4 wide. Good luck having a tight end, and nevertheless, like what's a fullback? But also the being out of shotgun and some of the splits and all those kinds of things, they found ways to be, pretty good in some gap scheme stuff that they did. But like, what are the challenges there when, and also maybe some of the advantages of lighter personnel? So the kind of the pros and cons of that offense, the way you see it.
Yeah. So if you're running like what we think is the try, and I'll be curious to see if what Kliff can do as far as adjusting, or will he adjust to the personnel out there? This last year at USC, he obviously wasn't calling the plays, but within the body of that offense, it's a lot of the same stuff we've seen from those in the air raid tree over the years. I think it's a couple of things. If you're running out of a lot of like 10 personnel looks where you don't have an attached tight end in the mix there, you're going to get light box looks, which means it's a little bit easier. You've got so much natural space created in those spots that if you can get a seam, your running back's got a bunch of rooms to work with. It can make you look pretty good. Again, it creates a little bit of room for error. It also leaves you exposed. There's a lot of guys on blocks that are one-on-one on an island where if you get beat pretty badly, things can go bad in a hurry. And I think that's just it, is overall the exposure. And just in those systems, a lot of the short passes end up mimicking a more consistent run game. And so you end up dropping back and passing a lot. And I understand that the analytics don't reflect the idea that body blows matter over the course of a game when it comes to setting up play action, which is also very different in the shotgun, not as easy to run or execute there. I do think there is something mentally for an O-lineman up front where if you don't have plenty of those opportunities to go downhill, work in double teams, get an advantage against these D-linemen that are such great athletes, by the end of the game, that's where you start to see some of the cracks show up.
Yeah, no, I think there's also like a schematic element. I've talked about this with some analytics folks, and it's like you agree that you wouldn't pass the ball 100% of the time. That wouldn't be maximally effective, right? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, okay, well then there's a sweet spot. We haven't found the sweet spot yet. It's probably also a moving target. We could talk about that another time because we could probably spend hours on it. Mike Golic Jr. here with us for another minute or two as he's wrapped up his week on his show. You can check, I'm guessing, the YouTube page has all your interviews, all that kind of stuff.
GoJo and Golic, DraftKings YouTube channel, our podcast, wherever you get your podcast. GoJo and Golic is going to have all the interviews from Super Bowl week here.
What was your favorite one?
Man,
I know you guys had Olsen today.
I thought
so good.
Greg's awesome. I'm really homer pick for me. We had Sam Hartman, former Notre Dame quarterback, on. Guy just gets it. Like, again, he's very self-aware, understands, like, hey, I'm not going to be the first quarterback off the board in this draft. I know my limitations. I know what I have to work on there, but he's a guy that just has such a good head on his shoulders. He came in and embraced that play so quick, and I think no matter what, life's going to be very kind to him because he's a real good outlook and a really good sense of himself.
What was your favorite bit of the week? Whether one that you guys did or one that you saw, you're just like, what's happening there?
So my favorite bit that we did this week, we went to opening night, and since this game is a sequel, the game played 4 years ago, we asked all the players, or a lot of them that we could wrangle up, what their favorite sequel was. And I was amazed at the variety between both teams here. We had a couple of guys advocating for Joe Tooney from the Chiefs, their offensive guard, went the Lord of the Rings trilogy. He's a big fan of Return of the King. Blake Bell, the tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs, went the Harry Potter series. Him and his wife had just watched the entire series of movies for the first time there. Kyle Juszczyk went Pitch Perfect 2, man after my own heart.
Okay.
So a lot of really good worldly choices from that group.
That's a good bit. That's quality. I feel like a lot of the bits don't have, like, it's all sizzle, no substance. Just a little bit. That's the key to a good bit. Just a smidge. So that's pretty much going to wrap it up for us. Anything, like, are you staying for the game, or are you out? Like, what's the?
I am. I'm getting out of here. I've been here since Sunday. I
love Sunday?
We got here Sunday. We were out here all week. I love Super Bowl week. It's such a cool opportunity to catch up with so many friends I've been fortunate to make in this industry, old coworkers. Some of whom are still, at ESPN. Some of whom have shot off to other places now and are doing so well, to check in with them, to have a few laughs, to get to see people go to work and to get to visit like this. But I'm exhausted. I went out way too hard last night. You can hear it in my voice. I need to go home and get some sleep.
Yeah, no, I'm at the end of my brain cells. I did have one more thing that I thought of to ask you, and you're kind of talking about catching up with people. Do you have a moment this week where you're up on that big fancy stage with your dad and you just go, because, like, you guys work together at ESPN, which is a big deal. Like, ESPN's still ESPN, but, like, where you're like, holy crap, like, I am up here with my dad on this thing. This is our show. Like, just kind of a moment to take it all in. I know you guys have been doing it for yourselves for a little bit now, but, like, a scene like this seems like the time that might hit you.
Yeah, I think it'll probably be more so in the coming days here. We took a couple of moments. I think to more just appreciate the investment from DraftKings and our staff who works around us there. The folks from the Vegas Stats and Information Network that they work in concert with. So many people come together to make something like that possible, and everybody that was up on that stage, Michael Lombardi and Stormy Buonantony and Ross Tucker and the Levitard show over at Circa, and all these moving parts that take so many people to make it happen, and to see that, all right, like I said, as we're figuring out, for us, life beyond the four letters, but for an industry that's constantly changing and seeing new players emerge, to see in such a short time that DraftKings has been doing content, how seriously they've taken this, how much it matters, the kind of resources and support they've given us. There is a deep appreciation for that up there for a lot of this week, and for the hardworking people that we've got working on our show every day, but working behind the scenes in that whole operation. It's a special group, and that's, from sports to being at ESPN to now, it's always about the locker room. It's about the people you get to go to work with every day. And, to have another special group that we found here of people that I'll hopefully get to know for a long time rocks.
That's awesome, man. That's Mike Golic Jr. GoJo and Golic is the show on the DraftKings Network. We get back, Anthony and I will pick the game, do real things, and then I'm going to be done talking because I am out of brain cells.
What's up, kiddos? It's your boy Clinton Yates from ESPN. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Tell your mama I said what's up.